Hi, I'm Tibick, and for the past year and a half, I've been getting into Warhammer 40k. I started with games and lore, but eventually got into miniature painting. People often ask me in the comments if I wanted to try 3D printing my own minis, but I always thought it was too intimidating, so I didn't really want to get into it. Until one day I decided to finally be brave about it and try it out. So in this video, I'm going to tell you about my experience with resin 3D printing. I did minimal research so that you could witness all of my successes and failures. So let's see if a 3D printed miniature can compare in quality to a mass-produced like this one. ELEGOO sent me the Mars 4 Ultra, and just to be clear, this video is not sponsored by ELEGOO, but I am forever thankful for their generosity and patience. I will leave some links in the description if you want to check them out. Honestly, I had no idea the resin printers were so small. It's like the size of a small PC. That was so cool to unbox. So here I am switching it on and everything seems to be working great. Pretty fancy with the little screen and everything. The manual said to update the software, so that's what I did. And before printing, it's important to do some calibrations, like the screen exposure, which honestly I still have no idea what it's for, but I do every time I print anyway. Leveling the bed had me a bit confused because I had to put this paper sheet under it and I wasn't super sure of the amount of pressure that I needed to have. What I found online was a bit vague, but my recommendation is just level it so that you can pull out the paper with a tiny bit of resistance. Then I poured some resin into the vat, enough to fill the whole thing, but not too much. Are these bubbles normal, by the way? I don't know. I didn't know how to get rid of them, so I just let them be. Important! Danger! Danger! Resin printing is very toxic and dangerous, so you have to do it in a very well ventilated area and wear protective gloves, masks, goggles, helmet, whatever you have. If you guys never done it, then you have no idea how messy it is. No matter how much you clean, there's always gonna be a little bit left and it's all gooey and smells weird for a few hours. I decided to print the test chest piece that comes included in the USB stick. I was surprised to see that a simple piece like that takes a whole 2 hours to print. The reason for this is that resin printers print the whole plane of the bed as a layer all at once, so if I had printed 5 rooks, it would have taken the exact same time. The print time is based on the height and how many layers there are, which I thought was pretty cool. Look at me learning how to 3D print. ELEGOO also kindly sent me the Mercury wash and cure station, which came super handy to clean up the piece. I will show more of it later. And here's the rook. It's honestly a very detailed piece with a little stairway inside of it. I was impressed. I didn't know 3D prints could be this detailed. It has paint here and there because I've been using it to practice some miniature painting techniques on it. So I'm using it. Another thing I realized is the resin 3D printed pieces are very brittle and break super easily. I dropped it and this is what happened, but nothing some super glue can't fix. Also, during this step, I learned that plastic cement doesn't work with resin pieces. Anyway, enough with the testing, let's go print our own miniatures. Here I have 3 miniatures. Can you guess what they are before the end of the video? You get a cookie if you guess correctly in the comments. Also, I realized that my printing setup had too much light going on, so I decided to put up some improvised towel curtains that did the trick. Ultraviolet light hardens the resin, so I made sure not to let any of it in. It's so satisfying to watch it go up and down. I love how it slowly uncovers the pieces and all of that goo. Wait, is that why it's called ELEGOO? Two and a half hours later, the miniatures are out of the bath. Now that I'm done printing, I put all the remaining resin back. It can get very messy, so using a strainer like this helps a lot. Time to scrape these guys off. This part took some brute force. I don't know if I calibrated too close to the bed, but it took some superhuman strength to pull these guys out of bed, just like me in the morning. I put them on some paper towels because they were still sticky and messy to handle. Have I mentioned how messy resin is? It also never dries and gets everywhere. Oh my god. And we're done! Just kidding, we still need to clean them. They're filthy. Okay, so I had no idea about this process, but it turns out that once printed, it still needs to go through a deep wash of alcohol to get rid of any goo left. Luckily, the Mercury station does this job easily, but I heard there are some other easy homemade solutions as well. I personally use the normal medicinal alcohol that is 97%. Not sure if that's right, but I think it worked. It was pretty cool to see the models spin around and slowly seeing them more clean. Now that the models are clean, I can easily remove the support from the print. I was afraid at first, but you have no idea how satisfying it was to rip the big parts off. Definitely my favorite part of the whole process. As you can see, there are only 2 models here because a brother fell during this step. I told you I will walk you through my successes and failures. Basically, when I added the support for this miniature in the PC, they were thick, and when I pulled them out, it made a mess. Some parts were okay, but the majority was destroyed on one side or the other. This was Titus from Space Marine 2, by the way. F in chat for our fallen brother. Leandros must be happy. Anyway, lesson learned, only do thin supports for miniatures. The other 2 models were pre-supported, so I didn't have any issues. For the final step, party! Oh wait, it's actually the curing. I just got too excited with all the spinning. So this step is just ultraviolet light hitting every part of the miniature to make sure everything is hardened and ready to go. This is why I mentioned earlier that you do not want any daylight messing up your prints before this step. Here are the 2 miniatures finished. Did you guess who they are? The first one is the Plague Knight from Trench Crusade, which you can buy off their website and print yourself. And the second one is Chestnut from Space King, which was modeled by a very talented member of my community, Alex. How cool are they? Again, what surprised me the most was the level of detail for such small pieces. Just amazing. So, we successfully printed the miniatures, and now the question is, can we paint them like the normal ones? Will the paint and the primer stick to the surface? I had my doubts, but let's start with priming first. My editor 3D printed with PLA this really cool priming tool. You just stick your miniature and you can spin it around while spraying, which makes it very easy. I decided to go with Citadel Chaos Black for the Knight and White Scar for Chestnut. That's when it happened. Right after priming, I dropped poor Chestnut and shattered in a few pieces. Remember when I said resin is brittle? Yeah, I wasn't kidding. Another F in chat for a fallen brother. With another miniature broken, there was only one left that I could paint. So that's what I focused on. By the way, I will print the other 2 again and will be more careful this time. Apparently resin expires and ELEGOO sent me 2 of these bottles, so I gotta print more stuff before it goes bad. If you have any suggestions what should I 3D print, let me know in the comments. I found this guide by Dark Forge that I followed as a rough guide, but I use my own Citadel paints. To start, I use a rust technical paint called Typhus Corrosion as a base coat. Then did a metallic dry brush coat all over the armor and spear. It was a mix of Retributor Gold and Iron Hand Steel. Then, for the cape, I did 2 coats of dry brushing of different shades of gray. This was my first time dry brushing, so it's a lot of fun. I put some blood for the blood god then on the helmet and the spear, and I think it turned out awesome. And finally, I added him a base that I prepped with Sterland Battlemire texture. This miniature was by far the easiest and most fun I've ever painted. This gritty, grimdark style is just awesome, and I was very happy at this point how it came out. What do you think? By the way, the spear broke at some point during a live stream too. I didn't even realize at first. But don't worry, he's fine now. Nothing some super glue can't fix. And that's it. Honestly, at first, I was afraid of starting this project, but if you take things slow, if you solve one problem at a time and don't rush things, it's easier than I expected. If I can do it, you can do it too. My biggest advice is to take it easy and read the safety instructions because resin is toxic, and my house was smelling of chemicals for 2 days afterwards. Here is my 3D printed mini and my Warhammer 40k Games Workshop mini. Honestly, if I didn't know that this one was 3D printed, I would never have guessed it. I would just think that it's a normal miniature. So in terms of looks, I can say that there's not much different. It all depends on how you paint it. Unfortunately, in my case, for some reason, I drop them all the time and the resin ones break super easy, like immediately. So I can say for me, this is a disadvantage. My conclusion. Resin 3D printing is fun, but it is a very time-consuming hobby on its own. But it is also very rewarding if you dedicate yourself to it and are using all the precautions. The fact that you can just print anything you want is absolutely amazing. Some people say you can save money by printing your own 3D miniatures. That is true if you have dedicated, well-ventilated workshop for that. But if you have to put your 3D printed setup together each single time, you also have to consider how much time you spend on it. For example, cleaning everything afterwards took me almost an hour. I hope you liked the video. Thank you for watching, and if you find this interesting, let me know if you want to see more 3D printed stuff. Also, if you're new to the hobby but feel intimidated by it, like I was, feel free to ask me any questions and I will be happy to reply. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Don't forget to check out my Twitch and Discord. Bye! If you watch until the end, here's your prize. Loki, say hi. Okay, bye. Thanks for watching.